And we could wrap up in a bit right here, but because on December 12th, I'm sure you guys are following this, the Game Awards are coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, Cody's probably nominated for something for that, right?
I'm not, but thanks.
I'm going to write to them right now. This is an outrage. Is Will?
No, the music for Star Wars Outlaws didn't get nominated, but the lead actress, Umberly Gonzalez, she's nominated for Best Performance, and then the game as a whole is nominated for Best Action Adventure Game.
Who do I have to write a letter to? This is an outrage.
Wow.
I'll do it right now. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to talk about the nominees for Best Score in Music. Like, you got Astrobot, you got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor Refantasio, and Silent Hill 2, Stellar Blade. Who do you think is gonna?
Are you familiar with Metaphor? Like what the game is about?
I've heard of it, but I haven't really heard much.
It's based on Hieronymus Bosch's, I think, In the Garden of Evil. I can't remember what the name of it was, but he's one of my favorite artists on the planet. It's the most like unsettling art you'll ever see, and the game is like pretty much based on the art style and the imagery and the experiences of that guy. And we're talking about artwork that was made in like the 1500s by this guy, and the art, like the vision and the fantasy that he had in his brain,
right,
is perfectly normal with what we look at today. It's pretty wild. So it's a game completely based on that. I haven't listened to the music, but at the same time, there's two up there that are like, those are some heavy hitters there. Silent Hill 2 and Final Fantasy Rebirth. Those are tough to compete with. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with Astrobot or Stellar Blade enough to really comment. I don't really know any of these. I know Silent Hill 2. I'm playing it.
Yeah, Silent Hill's, my gosh. Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Dead Space. That's my jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting year in general for the Game Awards. We're in this era right now, both in film and TV and in games, that like IP still seems to be some type of like, like king over all other things.
Yeah.
Especially like nostalgia bait IP. So it's like this Silent Hill remake is up there. The Final Fantasy remake is up there. A DLC is up for Game of the Year. And before it was like DLCs and expansions, and remakes were more of like remasters, and it was just like a way to give back to fans that were like in love with the game. But it's turned into this like, I don't want to say predatory, but it's this gamble on the nostalgia of what people thought life was like when they played these games. And so they're already pre-projecting this sense of saudade almost, which is like this remembering of like the hope your life used to have when you were playing these games at the time you were. And there's like a really interesting psychological moment happening with the way that games, film, and TV are all digested and like perceived. I'm gonna be honest, I've listened to some Silent Hill because I know I like
Akira Yamaoka.
There you go, thank you.
Yeah.
Akira Yamaoka.
He's great, yeah.
And I also know Arcadius, who did some additional music for Team Blooper on that. And so I've listened to some of that, and it's fantastic. But everything else, I know Kenneth Young did Astrobot, and the Final Fantasy team is the Final Fantasy team, and I haven't listened to a note of Stellar Blade. But, our individual point of views on this definitely are skewed, into the regions and the markets that we play. And so I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to look at a lot of nominees across all of the different categories and feel somewhat disconnected from these games, because the gaming industry is only becoming more global. And I think that's what we're seeing in a lot of the nominees as well. It's not just the AAA games or the Western big tentpole titles that you would expect, but it's, there's a card game, that's up for Game of the Year.
Balatro.
That's because, Balatro, because people love it.
Yeah, Sydney is obsessed
lost their
with
minds. I didn't even know it existed. That's how bad of a gamer I am these days. So I don't know. I feel some kind of way about like not seeing the scores I really love this year up there, because I generally think I have a pretty good gauge for, you know, what is objectively good in terms of like creative and technical achievement as well as musical sort of prowess and creative expression. But I guess the onus is on me to like expand my horizons a little bit. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm going to be really, really interested to see what happens at the BAFTAs and at DICE, because I don't know how these are going to stack up. This year was like, I mean, maybe except for the game that I worked on, this year was kind of like an underwhelming year for like massively creative games. Less Elden Ring DLC, but again DLC.
Yeah.
Less Final Fantasy Rebirth,
Right.
but again,
Yep.
it's a remake.
Metaphor ReFantazio is definitely one of the most creative games that I think came out for the year.
I
It's
would be
insane.
surprised if that
You
doesn't
got to
win.
look at it.
Yeah.
I'll check it
crazy.
out. I got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely also like Akira Yamaoka has been an inspiration on me since I heard the music for the first time as a kid. It influenced my band work 110%. So like it was huge for me. I always kind of like I loved like the grunge era of the 90s and a lot of the weird kind of off kilter like failure-esque Jawbreaker style kind of alt rock stuff that came out of the 90s. I know that influenced him quite a bit too, but I was also a Twin Peaks nerd as a kid.
Oh, cool.
And Twin Peaks was like the closest thing to Silent Hill that you could possibly get in a TV show. And a lot of crossover with that kind of that Angelo Badalamenti kind of sound with like the 90s drum and bass synth scene stuff that Akira was really good at as well too. It's just such a weird soundtrack. It like that music alone would get my vote just because of its impact. But again, like that's like going back in time and like voting for something like kind of what Cody's saying. Like this is, you know, it's a remake. I don't know. It feels weird. I'd like to see the hard work put in for new ideas to kind of be nominated for things, but at the same time, like it's still hard work that was put into making that game come out. Like it was a lot of work. And in a lot of ways, like a lot of people are going to play that game for the first time ever with the remake. So it's new to somebody.
It's true.
And the Final Fantasy soundtrack is just unfairly epic and good. You know, it's like the biggest soundtrack that you could possibly listen to for the year. It's massive sounding. It's so big.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm going to root for the underdog on that one. I'm going to go with Metaphor just because I like to see new unorthodox things take some wins once in a while, you know.
I'm sure they'll win one, like something, because they
got to get something. Yeah.
For like
also
art
the Black
direction
Myth
and everything.
Wukong soundtrack was nuts.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
didn't that
Fire.
Man, the percussion work on that alone. It was like a lesson in like how to do the best type of percussion for the area that the characters are in. Like it was the best that I've heard so far. Like I felt like you could have been sitting there watching this happen from like an arena perspective, like watching these characters fight, and like the percussion was like right in front of me. It was really cool.
Yeah. I got a lot of Demon Slayer vibes from it, like the anime. Like
totally
just has that epic showdown. I don't know. That game's amazing.